You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back to the program. I'm joined now by Representative Brian Evans, Republican of Cabot. He is the House Education Committee Chairman. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, really great to be here today.
Congratulations on your chairmanship
well,
there,
thank
too.
You.
This
thank
is your
you.
first term to do that.
It is. Very thankful for Speaker Shepard and his entrustment in me to chair the House Education side, and especially in such a pivotal point in education in the state of Arkansas.
Yeah, it's a good thing there won't be anything happening in education this legislative session, so it'll be a real calm session for you. So obviously, you're here today to talk about what is going to be probably the singular most important piece of legislation that's going to come through this session, and that is Governor Sanders' education plan, which we haven't seen yet because there's still conversations going on. Maybe give me some sort of sense of what's been happening behind the scenes without revealing anything secret, but just tell me why it's taking a while to negotiate in terms of that particular piece of legislation.
Certainly. So as Governor Sanders rolled out her Arkansas Learns plan, that's what this is really all about. And I've been very appreciative of being included in a small working group that the governor and her staff have entrusted to help put this together. They've been very responsive to legislative feedback in different things that we see that represents our districts back home and things that we know that we need to take care of our folks and take care of our kids.
All right, well, let's go through a few of the things that she has publicly said are going to be in this plan, and you can tell me maybe how volatile or not volatile some of those things are. Let's begin first with teacher pay raises. There's going to be teacher pay raises from somewhere in this legislative session. Agree, disagree?
I'll agree.
How big could they be? How small could they be? Do you think that you guys are coming close to getting to a number?
I think we're getting very close. Obviously looking at the overall fiscal impact of that and being able to put the tools in the toolbox for the sustainability for our districts going forward. Back in the summer during the adequacy program and the study that we do biannually, that was a big topic of conversation, and both the House and the Senate were in unison that we had to make a large move on teacher compensation going forward so that we can remain competitive with our adjoining states, and no one was opposed to that. It's just the process that we need to go through to get there.
You guys had different versions of how big those should be, though, in terms of adequacy.
Most of that was actually timing. The House recommended going ahead and doing something retroactive to the 22-23 school year, and the Senate wanted to wait and do it to the 23-24 school year.
All right, pre-K investments, investments in reading literacy programs to improve those reading scores, particularly those kids before they get to the 4th grade level. That will be part of this plan as well. Are you satisfied that you think that there will be a big enough investment to move the needle on that?
I do. It's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to be incremental growth, but the governor and her staff, that is a huge piece of that. Been very blessed to have Secretary Oliva join in the conversations over the last couple of weeks, bringing his expertise in literacy, especially in areas that are ridden with poverty and low-performing schools, and we're going to see a big jump in that.
I think that for realistic expectations too, though, you look at those rankings nationally, Arkansas I think is around 48th or 49th in terms of reading proficiency by the 4th grade level, and we're at like 35%, I think is the number that registers with me. I may be off a point or two there. Number 1 is only in the 40% range. I mean, we're talking about, this is a really hard needle to move in terms of literacy, and we may jump up a lot in state rankings, but it doesn't necessarily mean the level is going to jump up that much. Is that accurate to say that from your perspective?
That's very accurate. Currently, 35% of all students in the 3rd grade are not reading at 3rd grade level. And so we know that every percentage point that we can move that up is going to be a greater impact on them as they go forward in their education.
And then you've also, I think the big question mark right now, and I don't know if this is determined, decided, or what's going on in conversations and what you can and cannot share, and I'm respectful of that. Obviously, there's going to be a push for school choice. Some people call it parent choice, some people call it vouchers. You can call it anything you want to. What do you think it's going to be called, first of all?
Well, I think the governor has mentioned that it's about parental empowerment. It's giving that opportunity back to those parents to make the educational choices that they believe is in the best interest of their child.
What will that look like, do you think, or what is being considered, do you think, for
options.
that to look like? Yes.
It's all about options and meeting the needs of the student where those needs lay. No one knows better than the parent what their child needs, and so providing those options and creating the pathways for that child on those options is very important to the governor.
Can I have an example? I mean, like, for instance, I've got a child that's in the 10th grade. Let's say I had a child that's also in the 5th grade. My kids are older, so that's not accurate. But so I might want to put one of them in private school. I might want to put one of them in a charter school. I may want to put one in a virtual homeschool academy. I mean, are all those things going to be a possibility?
I do see that as possibilities. I mean, that's not been finalized yet, but certainly we have options already in the state, but students have been somewhat bound to their zip code and the ability that the parent had through the school choice programs that we already have to get their students to those locations. But I see us going forward as having those opportunities available to every child.
What are the concerns that are being raised from, maybe not members of this working group that you're part of, but what your members on the committee are hearing, what you're hearing from some of the options that are out there? What's the pushback been on some of those potential options?
I think all concerns are legitimate. You know, I've been very blessed to be a part of the Cabot School District for a number of years. And even within that district, sometimes it's hard to get the parents to sign a report card and get it returned home, or the challenges of getting a parent to fill out the form so that their student could have free or reduced lunch. And so getting the information to them, getting them reactive to the opportunities rather than just doing what is convenient, that's a challenge that I hear from a lot of members.
One of the things that we hear a lot of is that the money will be able to follow the students. So if I just use the per pupil spending of $11,000, I'm going to round off right there, that money could follow a kid from the Cabot School District to another school district, to another private school or homeschool option. Is that something that's being debated and discussed?
Yes, it is.
How will that work in terms of making sure that districts don't lose too much money, which I think is where the pushback's going to come from a superintendent, from a school board, and even from a community.
Right. So currently school districts are funded a year behind. They receive the funding based upon the third quarter ADM or the student population that was there in the third quarter of the previous year. And so if a student were to transfer from one district to the next or to another education option, that school district is still going to receive that funding the next year. So they're not going to have.
After that is where the
and
potential
then
fiscal impact.
Currently, the way that funding is set up is that if you have a certain percentage of loss within your district, then the state also provides declining enrollment fund as well, which would be in the second year. So districts would have at least 2 years then to be able to adjust budgets based upon their student population.
Are you worried about how big that price tag may be?
Well, it's more of the unknown at this moment. You know, with everything in K-12, there has to be a fiscal impact study completed, and until all of the documents are ready to send to the Bureau and put into bill form, there's really not a way for the economists to be able to attach a fiscal impact to that, and so it's just part of the process that we're waiting on.
So we'll eventually get a bill, an omnibus bill, or potentially breakout bills. You can tell me which one if you think you might know, and then those will have to be scored after they come out. So we'll potentially see a draft of what's going to be proposed before we see a fiscal impact of what's being proposed.
That is correct. And I think it's safe to say that you know, when you hear the word omnibus, it tends to put fear in people, but
I'm not scared of an omnibus bill.
If you look at the definition of omnibus, it's that it includes multiple things, and it's very important in understanding that this is a process, and when you're looking at reform, there's multiple pieces to that. Everything from starting with the pre-K through the K-3 literacy, through the 5-8 numeracy, to career readiness for junior high going into senior high, preparing for post-secondary. All of those are integral pieces of the process. And so if you break that out into individual bills, and one piece or two pieces of those don't make it through the process, then you've actually put a kink in the whole growth process of that student from pre-K to 12. And so I think that's the impact and the stimulus behind there being one complete bill because it encompasses the whole process and the growth of the child.
All right, he's Representative Brian Evans. When he comes back with that bill, we'll have you back on to dissect it some more. You want to give me a time frame when
That'd
we
be great.
might see something?
Well,
Next
I
week,
think,
week after, week after that?
I think we're getting close, but I don't really want to quantify that. You know, the governor has said multiple times that this is big. This is a #1 initiative for Governor Sanders and her team. It's a very important issue with the General Assembly as well, and we want to get it right and not get it fast.
Yeah.
So it's coming.
All right. I don't know what that timetable is that you just told me, but soon.
Soon.
I guess is what it is. All right. Give me a 30-minute heads up before it hits. How about that?
Yes, sir.
Promise?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
We're back with more right after this.